As we seek to change our business, where do we start making those investments?
You are the number one asset in your business. That is the place that you should invest. Now, we talk about maybe trying to find our shortcomings and fix those up and invest there. But I am a much bigger fan of investing in our strengths and leveraging your strengths as opposed to spending all of your energy trying to, polish up where you're coming short.
Once we've made a change, how do we sustain that over long periods of time?
One and done, like I'm going to work really hard and get it done. And then you do that and you don't necessarily see the results or you don't follow through. Success is boring. That's the reality of it. It's those little things that results in, huge compound returns.
We're going to discuss all that and more today on episode 483 of the Working Cows podcast with Josh Kerpan, brought to you by the Rogue Food Conference.
Welcome to the podcast that gives producers a platform to discuss and share paradigm-challenging practices. Practices that have increased the effectiveness of their operation and the joy that their families have received from this lifestyle.
Howdy, everybody. It's Clay Connery, host of the Working Cows podcast, recorded exclusively in the Understanding Ag studios. Very excited to be joined once again by Josh Kerpan. He's been a guest multiple times before and always has good ideas about leadership and how we can make changes in our business, how we can grow a business, how we can lead a business that doesn't need us to be there to continue to run and then branch out into other things, and just really appreciate his perspective. So looking forward to this conversation with Josh today, and we're going to talk to him right after a word from our sponsor, the Rogue Food Conference. And the Rogue Food Conference is coming February 6th and 7th with an optional VIP dinner on February 5th. To Rapid City, South Dakota, will be hosted at First Baptist Church in Rapid City, South Dakota. Tickets are available at roguefoodconference.com. Code COWS30 will get you $30 off of your ticket. So you can go there, type in the code, get the discount, and join us. We'll have Joel Salatin, John Moody, Steve Campbell, Bart Carmichael, Ellen Bench, Shad Sullivan is going to come and talk about the war on beef, all kinds of different speakers. Michael Sillick will be there. He's going to talk about soil health and using C90 ocean minerals for livestock and soil health. All kinds of different speakers and people there sharing about rogue approaches to food, farming, and finance. So encourage you to join us February 6th and 7th in Rapid City, South Dakota for the Rogue Food Conference. That's roguefoodconference.com, code COWS30 for $30 off your ticket. Josh, thanks for joining me again on the Working Cows podcast. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Clay. Excited to be back. It's always great to be here.
Yeah, I appreciate the work that you've been doing on the coaching side and some of those things. And we're kind of in a unique position right now in agriculture, especially on the cattle side of things. There's lots of money to be made, profit even to be had. And I think that one of the most important things that we can do is, first of all, recognize what profit is in agriculture, because it's, according to typical management, it's kind of a break-even business. So profit is possible. And then once you know that profit is possible, what is your profit for, is the next question you've got to ask. So maybe let's talk a little bit about that, about defining profit from that perspective. And then we'll dive off and talk a little bit about what profit is for.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think that a lot of people don't fully understand what a profit is or if they're profitable. And, I think that you kind of hit the nail on the head that there's some money to be made. Certainly there's some revenue to be made, especially in the cattle side. The grain side of things has kind of flipped the other direction right now. But there's some revenue to be made. That doesn't probably necessarily mean that all operations are profitable. I made a post earlier this summer and kind of figured there's three different types of businesses right now. There's businesses that are are profitable in these good times with these good cattle markets and wondering what to do with that profit. There's businesses that are, probably still just kind of now breaking even. And they were that far in the hole that they're just sort of now breaking even, and when wondering, geez, if we're breaking even now, or we're not really profitable in these record prices, then what does that mean for the future? How are we going to do it when things correct? And then there's people that just don't have a clue. And sometimes I guess ignorance is bliss until the accountants or the banker comes calling. But yeah, understanding what profit is and that there's two sides to the ledger, right? I mean, everybody's looking at these cattle prices saying, man, there's a lot of money coming in. And we still seem to not really understand the other side of the ledger. I mean, we know it's there and we know there's some money that goes out, but we don't fully understand all the value that's going out of our businesses that we can't necessarily count. So that's a big part of understanding, if you actually are profitable, because you should definitely want to try and be profitable at these types of prices.
Yeah, for sure. And what do you think it is that maybe how do you go about making the transition from, one of those other two groups to the people who, I know I'm profitable and I know why, kind of the things. What are some of the things you got to pay attention to?
Well, I guess there's two different people. The person that's just completely ignorant needs to go and get some knowledge, right? And there's a number of places to go out and get that knowledge. Ranching for Profit's a great one of those that will teach you to understand, your true profitability. And if you are in these times getting the revenue that's coming in and you're still not so profitable, then well, that's probably still not a bad place to be. But get yourself around people that know how to make you profitable in this time, because if you're not now, boy, you're probably never going to be. And these commodity markets are always cyclical. They're always going to go up and down. And right now we're up, and I don't know when, but I do know that at some point there's going to be a down, and you're going to want to be kind of in position for that. So depending where you're at, there's a couple of different paths forward to make sure that you set yourself up best for the future.
What would be some of those sources or places that you would go to kind of learn how to get profitable?
I mean, there's an infinite fountain of knowledge available. Podcasts like yours, right? I mean, there's new guests on all the time that are giving great ideas. The problem is that not every idea works in every context. And I think that can get people into a lot of issues, right? I certainly had that sort of podcast-itis there for a little while, where I'd listen to a podcast and I'd get excited about the idea. I'd go and implement it, and it would fail to some degree, which is fine. You learn from it. But I started realizing that, not every idea works in every context. So I think that it's really good to get involved with another person or group of people that understand your context and understand the knowledge that can be brought into your context to help you get there, right? This is not, you don't have to do everything on your own. And that's the thing in agriculture for sure, that we've got a bit of lone wolf syndrome. We want to figure things out on our own. And I understand that. But don't look at it as necessarily asking for help. If you're asking somebody to come in and give you assistance to figure it out, you've got something to offer them too. But teaming up with another person or group of people that are either where you're at or are wanting to get where you're at is really invaluable.
Yep. And would you say, like, recommend local mentorship networks and then, find somebody who's maybe farther down the road of profitability than you are and say, I want you to bring me along, and then maybe even have that mentorship network be a place where you can bring in, a coach or a consultant like yourself or something like that? Or how would you approach it?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a little bit tricky because I'm not sure that a lot of people are willing to share if they're more profitable than us, right? And we might drive by the yard and see some fancy new machinery and assume that they're more profitable. But if you get into their books, you might find a very different story. So it is nice to get together with people that are in a similar context. That's definitely helpful because not everything works everywhere. But I don't know that you can assume that somebody can necessarily help you. So I think increasingly there's groups, coaches, consultants, programs that are designed to put people together so that they can share this type of information, right? I mean, we just got done our executive link meetings in Billings last week, and that's one good example. And there's certainly others. There's other good programs, but that's one good example of people coming together from at least similar contexts, sharing ideas, creating accountability to help you actually put those ideas in action. Because the reality is none of us are short on knowledge. If we don't have it in our minds, we've got access to it right here on our phones. I mean, really, anything that you could ever want. So you can get the information you want at your fingertips. Putting that information into action in your business is a completely different story. And that's where getting the help of mentors, groups, masterminds, other people is invaluable.
Sure. So those are some of the things that you can do to go and make that transition from not profitable to more profitable, and the ways that you can learn. But then once you are profitable, I think another important question is, and we've touched on this, but kind of diving in and defining that a little bit more, defining what your profit is for, and what are some of the things that you have seen, or give maybe examples of what people have made, this is my goal, this is what I want to use the profit for.
Yeah. So I don't know that I can give any specific examples, because any that I know, it would be, reasonably confidential, but it is important to define clearly what you want your profit to be and why. The why behind any goal is pretty important, but it's really interesting when you set or put a number to any target or any goal, how you will find a way to kind of hit that. You want to be a place that money comes to because it will know that it's taken care of and put to good use. One thing that's interesting and has really stood out to me from talking with people in these good markets, especially as we inch closer to wherever that correction is going to be in the future, that people now all of a sudden have got a profitable operation, maybe a little bit built up in the bank, and they now just want to hang on to that. And that's a bit of a dangerous place to be in. When you just want to hang on to something and you don't put it to work for you, you're liable to lose it. If you just let it sit in the bank and do nothing, that's not probably the best use of any of that sort of capital. So you want to have a good plan on what you want to do. You want to reinvest it, back into your business, back into you, into working capital. I know there's a Profit Tips article where Dallas quoted Dr. David Cole, and his rule of thumb was 60% back into the business, 30% to working capital, because it's always good to have lots of nice working capital. And we're going to, at some point, that'll run a little bit thinner, and then 10% for having fun. And I think that, you can convince yourself that there's things that should be in that 10% that you'll maybe bill out to that 60%. And that's just a matter of being honest with yourself, thinking, do I really need that new truck? Oh, we need that for the business, that'll go into the 60% when really it should be in the 10%. And these numbers aren't hard and fast for anybody, but it'd be a pretty darn good rule of thumb, because I suspect the irony of this situation, of these high cattle markets, is that it will create more financial strain over the next decade than, the hard times ahead of it. And
what percentage of that financial strain do you think is related to people who are trying to avoid paying taxes?
I think that's one component for sure. That's just a way that makes it easy to spend money on the things that you want, right? To throw things that should be in that 10% for fun into that 60%. I don't know that that's the entire case. I mean, everybody's a little bit different, but for some people, it's just been maybe 10 or 15 years of a pent up desire to spend some money, and they're just going to go ahead and do it on foolish things. And I mean, to some degree, you can do that, but probably should keep it to something like that 10% rule.
Are you aware of, or do you recommend any kind of baseline for people prior to making that investment in yourself? Like, we want to have this much in this many months or whatever in expenses in the bank before we go and try to make this investment in ourselves or in the business?
I think that would be very, again, context dependent and dependent on your business. And that's where you should know your numbers and your cash flow and that type of thing well enough, or else you should be partnering with somebody else who does. So, if that's not your deal, doing the books and being a CFO isn't your deal, you can definitely partner with people who will understand those things well enough and be able to advise you on that. And, one nice thing that technology has done for us is given us the abilities to partner with fractional CFOs, even CEOs and CMOs, and be able to bring these people on at a fractional level where you don't have to pay their full salary, but you get access to their specialized knowledge. And that specialized knowledge is one of the biggest benefits to scaling up bigger is you could build a bigger team, but now it's really accessible to even smaller businesses to get that specialized knowledge, which is, I think, something that people should really consider taking advantage of.
Let's take a quick break and hear a word from our sponsor today, the Rogue Food Conference. Rodeo Rapid City just won again for the 6th time the Rodeo of the Year, large indoor rodeo of the year. And so we have a ticket that includes tickets to Rodeo Rapid City. And so I'd encourage you to go to roguefoodconference.com, get your tickets, and you can buy a ticket for the rodeo and go to the rodeo and enjoy a performance of one of the best actually the best, verifiably the best large indoor rodeo in America, just awarded so at the National Finals Rodeo here at the beginning of this month. So encourage you to check that out. roguefoodconference.com, code COWS30. Yeah, what are some of the team members that you would recommend, even a smaller business? These are kind of must-haves even at a fractional level.
It depends on what you are willing and capable of taking on yourself. But you need to map out your entire organization and really define what your organization needs. So your organization needs a CFO or a controller of some sort handling the numbers, and they need a CEO setting the strategy, and they need a COO handling the operations. If you aren't capable, and there's not very many people who really are going to excel at all of those things. So outsourcing one of those or two of those is not a bad idea at all. Now, whether you outsource that to somebody who's currently on your team or somebody who's external to your business, that depends on the construction of your team and who you've got on board right now. But those options are up to you. But one piece of knowledge or specialized knowledge that I think is a lot of people don't have and don't really love to have is that financial side of things. Like they if you don't understand your books and don't understand your numbers, it's probably because you don't enjoy that type of thing, and you should understand them to some degree, but you don't have to be an expert. That's something that can be outsourced relatively easy, and there's more and more services offering that type of thing all the time to make it easier.
But I mean, to your point, that's why they have a C-suite in a business. That's why there's the executive, there's the CEO, the CFO, the CMO, the COO. That's why all of those positions exist, is because nobody is good at all of those things or can perform well enough we all have the same, whatever it is, 1,440 hours in a week, and we're sleeping for 30% of those, so we all have the same limitations that you can't be all of those things in any business, no matter the scale. And so finding those people who can fill those roles and you can invite onto the team, even at like you said, a fractional time, a portion, say they're going to be doing this for us a couple, 3-4 hours a week, or, 8 hours a month or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's going to pay dividends, right?
Yeah, and a lot of people say, well, I'm just a small business. I don't have those roles to fill. No, that's not true. You have maybe you don't have those roles to fill, but all of the tasks that get done by those roles are really important in your business, and you probably aren't getting them done, which is maybe why you're still not profitable even in these good markets. So understanding what your business needs and filling all of those roles is critically important.
Yeah. Do you have any pointers or helps for people who, when they're trying to analyze the next investment, maybe even like in your case where you've grown the business to the point that you can replace yourself, and then how did you decide where you wanted to go next? How did you make that decision of, this is what I want to do next?
The one constant in your business and in your life is always going to be you. So to me, that's always the first place I'm going to invest. And I would suggest to other people that that's the first place that they should invest, right? You are the leader of your business. You are the number one asset in your business. That is the place that you should invest. Now we talk about maybe trying to find our shortcomings and fix those up and invest there. But I am a much bigger fan of investing in our strengths and leveraging your strengths as opposed to spending all of your energy trying to, polish up where you're coming short. Now, if you're coming up short, you have to get those to an acceptable level. But to spend a lot of time to try and get exceptional at something that you're not great at is really just largely a waste of energy. So if you lean into your strengths, and if you're not your strength yet, then you want to become the strength or one of the strengths of your business. So to answer your question, I'll always invest in myself first, and knowing that, trusting that the returns on that investment are going to trump anything else.
Certainly. And it's funny to hear you say that, because that's very similar to the advice that soil health gurus or consultants would give you about your land. Make your soil health investments on your healthiest land first. Start where it's already good. And then, hopefully that will spread to other places that aren't as good right now. But don't try to make your worst land better. Try to make your best land better, because it's already got some of that biological function happening, and it's going to respond more favorably and quicker to those investments, right? And so it's very similar to your own strengths. Invest where you already have some strengths and go from there, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting. That's not really what society kind of tells us what to do, or not how we're programmed. Because if you go to school, a kid goes to school, let's say, and of course there's a variety of skills and classes to take, and no kid is going to be great at all of them. There's just going to be some that they don't like as much. So if your kid goes to school and they're maybe getting a 40 in math, like failing math or just barely passing, and you get the report card, what is the teacher and mom and dad and the kid going to focus on? They're going to focus on that bad math grade. No matter how good the other grades are, they're going to focus on that bad math grade. How are we going to fix this math grade? And they're going to get tutoring, and they're going to spend a whole bunch of time fixing up that math grade. And they might get that kid to a 55 or a 60. They probably aren't going to get them to a 90, because maybe they will. I'm not certain, in any situation, but they're going to spend, the return on the investment of that energy is going to be a lot lower than if they would just pick something that the kid's really great at, that they love, and are more likely to take on the rest of their life. To me, that's a better place to invest your time and money. Now, you need to know some math, and it's kind of a life skill that you need to know. But again, you got one of these in your hand that'll basically do all the math that you really need to do to get through life anyway. So maybe it is overblown. I'm not sure, but yeah, society has kind of trained us to try and be jack of all trades, instead of leaning into and being really exceptional at what we're kind of naturally gifted at. And I think that's probably not a really great thing. I think it holds people back from pursuing what they would really love and really enjoy, and would give them a lot of fulfillment in their life.
Right. Yeah. And with your work there at Kaizen Solutions, what have been some of the things that you are doing to help people invest in yourself?
Yeah, so we just launched a new program that I'm really excited about. When we first started out, I had sort of two levels to the program, and the one was the 100x coaching, and it said coming soon. And it was some sort of elite goal achievement program, and I was very excited about it, but I didn't know what it was going to be. And we put all that together, and it's now come, and we're delivering it, and it's awesome. But really, it's about understanding what you want and getting clear on what you want to go. So it comes back to that vision. Whether we're talking about a business or you personally, you have to understand where you want to go. Like, what is your vision in life? What do you want to pursue? Where do you want to go? If you're not clear on that, then you can't move forward, because you don't know what direction forward is, right? You can move, but we don't know if we're not moving towards where we want to go. We don't know if we're moving in the right direction or not. So you've got to be clear on what you want, and then really understanding what's holding you back from getting there. And that comes down to paradigms, and understanding how our subconscious is programmed. And we talked about that. And so much of our subconscious programming comes from an early age, from our school time when, we were told you got to be good at math, whether you like math or not. And all those types of, right, failing's bad. That math grade is unacceptable. We can't accept it as a good thing, when in reality, failing is just the first step towards achievement on anything, right? Fail fast and fail forward. But understanding your particular paradigms and what's stopping you from getting what you want is a massive discovery, and really eye-opening when people start looking at their lives and what they truly believe to be true and where those things have come from. Light bulbs start coming on, which is really cool. Now that's great to know. So yeah, I've got these subconscious programming that's stopping me from accomplishing whatever I want to accomplish. Now what do I do about it? And I think that's where this program that we're running is pretty unique in showing you how to actually change your paradigms so that you can change your habits consistently, become that sort of new version of yourself that you need to become in order to accomplish the things that you want to accomplish.
Yeah. And I was listening to something the other day, a leadership podcast, and it was Craig Groeschel, who's a pastor of Life Church, Life.Church, I guess is their name now. And he's involved in several other things. YouVersion, the Bible app, was launched out of his church. They just passed 1 billion downloads of that app. And so he's been very successful in the things that he's been doing. And I think it was his podcast or somebody else's. I can't remember, but they were both of them kind of in this leadership coaching space. And one of them, and they both got to talking about the keystone habit. The thing that's most important is getting something done early in the day. And usually it's something that you have some resistance in doing, something that's, that resistance you're experiencing against doing that. And they both gave the same example. They both said it's flossing. For them, it was flossing was their keystone habit. And I have noticed that reality too in my own life, to the point that I thought, if I ever write a book, I think I will title the book "It Started with Flossing," because I've seen those keystone habits, and then they kind of become that key that unlocks other things. Like, oh, I've seen the benefits of that, and now there's other things that I'm getting done more consistently than I was before I started that keystone habit. So, is that kind of similar in your experience, or part of this program as well?
Yeah, and that's, it's amazing how something like that could completely change your life, right? Because it's so simple, and that's the irony as part of our programming again. But we're programmed to believe that, hard work brings success, and to some degree that's true, right? It's hard to have success without hard work. Like, yeah, we have to work hard, but if we believe that hard work equals success, then harder work equals more success. But we all get to a point where there's only 24 hours in a day, and we literally can't work any harder. Yet there's other people that are seemingly way more successful than me. Like, why? Why is that, right? So there is something far beyond that. And flossing your teeth, I don't think that anybody would consider that to be hard work, but it's mentally very challenging, right? To do that type of thing is very challenging. It's amazing. Really, what you're doing by doing that is training your will. And your willpower is your ability to choose to focus on anything you want and make any decision that you want at any given point in time. And when you understand your willpower, that the fact that it's really a muscle, okay, so it builds stronger over time by doing little things like flossing. Okay, you could put a dot on a wall and sit across from that dot and just every day stare at it for 10 minutes to train your will. That's how easy it is to train your will. Nobody would do that because it's illogical. It's not hard enough work to actually make you better. Okay, but that's how you train your will long term. But you also have to understand that your will, just like working out a muscle, will get exhausted in the short term. So you aren't capable. Your willpower is not what it was after supper. It's not what it was first thing in the morning. First thing in the morning, you're fresh. That is your best opportunity to make the best decisions you can in the day. If you leave those difficult tasks like flossing or working out or whatever it is to after supper, for me, not everybody's exactly the same. For me, it's just much less likely to get done. And for me, that working out is my flossing, because it's not something that I particularly enjoy. That is a willpower exercise far more than it is a bicep exercise or a back exercise or anything else. I'm really working my willpower to make sure that I get that done every day. But that's one of the mental faculties that I think people have this tendency to believe that they're born with a certain capacity of discipline or willpower, and that's just sort of it, right? You're just unlucky because you're undisciplined. That's not true. You can work at it and train it. And it's a little bit illogical how you would train it, like flossing your teeth every day or staring at a dot on the wall. But simple things like that can really train your willpower and make huge differences in your life. And that's the sort of the evidence of that is the strength of compound investment interest over time, right? And you can look at it from a financial sense, and everybody sees it on paper, and it's like, oh, I understand that power of compound interest, but we don't think about it in from the context of making those little changes in our lives, or training our willpower, like flossing your teeth every day. Well, that compounds over time, just like your compound interest does, and you see profound changes over the course of maybe a year or something like that.
Right. That compound interest doesn't require a massive investment up front. It requires consistent small investments, right?
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of times, especially coming into the new year, as we are, a lot of times there's this, oh, I'm going to do X, Y, or Z once January 1st hits. I'm going to do the, New Year's resolution thing. And those, right, all the new gym memberships are in January, and all the new gym cancellations are in March, right? And, so it's better to be consistently disciplined in a small way than it is to make a massive commitment, in a way that doesn't get followed through with, right? Does that make sense?
100%, which is probably the biggest part of the challenge, why people just don't follow through and become really as successful as they can be, because we think that it needs to be this big project, this one and done, like I'm going to work really hard and get it done. And then you do that and you don't necessarily see the results, or you don't follow through. But that success is boring. That's the reality of it. It's those little things day after day after day that results in huge compound returns over time. And that is why having that vision and really having something that's exciting enough to you to get emotional about, that makes you excited for the future, so that those days that you don't want to floss your teeth, you're going to do it because that's part of what's getting you to where you want to go. Right? I mean, and we're not talking about dental health here, but we're talking about training our will to do the things we need to do. You need to have a really strong desire for where you want to go in order to do those boring things and get up and floss your teeth or work out, instead of sitting down for that extra cup of coffee or whatever it might be.
Yeah. Yeah. And then building, how do you build on that? I mean, in your experience, how would you coach someone to say, now let's turn that willpower training exercise into business success?
So I wouldn't do it too fast is the first answer. My experience with building habits is such that I subscribed to the theory that it was 21 days to build a habit, right? So I would do something. Let's take flossing, for example. I'd floss for 21 days and I'd be like, boom, habit's done. I don't have to think about it anymore. And then I'd look back in 2 months and realize I hadn't flossed my teeth for 6 weeks and wonder what the heck's that all about. I read on the internet that it was supposed to be 21 days and you're good to go. Well, that's not the case. There is some research to say that it's 66 days to form a habit. I don't think that you could put it down to any day or amount of days or amount of time or amount of reps. It's context dependent, depends on how deeply ingrained the current paradigm you've got is. But it takes a lot longer to reach automaticity in any habit than we think. Okay? And automaticity is where you'll do something automatically without any conscious thought to it. Now, there is a little bit of interesting evidence on the 21-day thing. That comes from Maxwell Maltz, who wrote Psycho-Cybernetics. And he wrote about the self-image. And that's a tremendously interesting read. The self-image is a really important part of your paradigm. but he has evidence, and pretty compelling evidence, that your self-image can change in about 21 days. But as far as really changing habits and reaching automaticity on new things, it's quite a bit longer than that. So that would be my first thing: is don't move on to the next habit too fast. Don't try too many things at once, right? One or two habits at a time, because it takes conscious thought and conscious reps to change a habit. So that people get frustrated because it's like, well, I'm going to change two habits at a time and it takes 66 days. It's going to take me a million years to get where I want to go. Not true. At 66 days, there would be roughly 5 turns per year. If you could do 2 new habits 5 times a year, that would be 10 new habits. Imagine if you could replace your 10 worst habits with your 10 best habits. In a year from now, you'd need a telescope to look back to see how far you've come. I mean, your whole life would be different just by changing 2 habits every couple of months. So it's trusting in that compound investment, the making the small changes over time and not trying to do too much at once is a really big part of the program.
Mm-hmm. And this is the 100X breakthrough. Is that?
That's right. Yeah.
All connected. And can you talk to me about the format of the program?
Yeah. So there's sort of 2 parts, maybe 3 parts to the program. There's a real educational part of the program where we really dive into the mind and how the mind works and how your mind works to get to know you at a deeper level. I'm very confident to say at a deeper level than you've ever known yourself before. And diving into some of these paradigms and what's holding you back and how to change them. That's all the educational sort of portion of it. And then it's about putting it into play in your life. So there's a mastermind side of this program as well, where you get put with a group of peers, where you meet together and you form a mastermind, and the mastermind really creates solutions for everybody's challenges. So that's what we were talking about a little bit earlier in the program: getting around people that are like-minded, that want some of the things or have already accomplished some of the things that you want to accomplish, bringing in that specific knowledge, and then the accountability part of it's a real big deal, to actually follow through and make sure that you make these changes.
Yeah. It sounds very powerful. And then what's the time commitment and kind of what's the length of the program?
It's a 6-month program. So 24 weeks, it's 12 lessons. So it works on really a 12-week cycle, but we go through it twice in the 12 weeks. So, repetition is a big part of it, but that's what it is 12 weeks twice over. So 24 weeks with room for a couple of weeks off in there. So it's about a 6-month program.
Very good. Yeah. That sounds like a good, and is it a limited number of people in the group? And
yeah, so the masterminds will stay relatively small just because that's really important to have I think there's a lot of trust involved, right? When you're opening up yourself at a pretty deep level here and opening up about some of the things that you want and the things that have stopped you from getting there. So there's a lot of trust involved. So the relationships that we're building have a lot of depth to them. So the groups, are kept small. For the educational part of it, we can have bigger groups for sure, but the mastermind cohorts are kept relatively small.
And it's more on the leading yourself side. It's not about necessarily, financials and all those kinds of things. It's about knowing and understanding yourself, right?
Absolutely. Yes, about knowing and understanding yourself, also knowing and understanding the culture of your business, the paradigms that are in your business, right? So your business is sort of a mirror reflection of you. If your business is poor financially, it's probably because you're poor financially. So understanding yourself definitely extends to your business. And when we talk about, creating a new self-image for ourselves, for example, the self-image of your business is really just the culture of your business, right? And all of our businesses have culture. If we haven't intentionally set that culture, then somebody else has. But if you don't think you have a strong culture in your business, you do. You just haven't looked deep enough. So it's there, and it can be rebuilt just like you can rebuild your paradigms and your self-image. But as far as like specifically get into financials and systems and, how to run meetings and stuff, we do have, side sessions, I suppose, to that. So if there's multiple people in one group that are really wondering how, like, let's put together an org chart. So we're going to have a session here coming up, working through just exactly that type of thing. So for me, it's I mean, it's incredibly fulfilling work because it's about finding out what people want, what's stopping them from getting there, and then creating the solutions to help them get there. Ultimately, it's about helping them to create their own solutions. But that's my commitment, and it's so much fun. It's the most fun. It's the most fun I've ever had. So.
And is there a sign up period typically, or is it kind of join anytime?
Yeah, so there's quarterly intakes. So the next one will be towards the end of January, and we'll be filling that group up here anytime. Once it's full, that one will be full. And if you get on board before January, then we've got sort of a momentum expander that we put you in. So if it's 6 weeks ahead of time, then we put you in there on a program that starts helping you to get really clear on what you want, because that's kind of where it all begins, is having a desire for something.
Very good. Sounds like a great opportunity. And Lord willing, this is going to release December 29th. And so be time there, if it's not full already, for people to look at that. And then if it is full, or if you're listening to this later at some other time, and you can look and see when the next quarterly intake is going to take place, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I think this has been a profitable conversation for sure. Anything else that was on your mind that you wanted to cover today?
No, it was, like always, just a good conversation. We had a little bit of a place we wanted to start and see where we ended up, and I'm happy with it. It's always really fun to come and talk with you.
All right, Josh, thanks for your time today.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Very good stuff there, as always, with Josh. Really appreciate his perspective and his experience, and just expanding our minds as to what's possible with regard to business leadership and what we can accomplish in business leadership. Coming up next on the Working Cows podcast, I'm going to share with you another one of the talks that I gave at Bethel Church's fall meetings in Saskatchewan. This one is about leading families. How do men lead their families spiritually? So look forward to sharing that with you, coming your way real soon on another episode of the Working Cows podcast. We'll see you then.
We invite you to visit workingcows.net to subscribe to the show via iTunes or Stitcher. You'll also find detailed show notes pages, resources from our guests, and the industry leaders who have influenced them. For more ideas on putting your cows to work for you in a more profitable way, tune in next week.